It is lightning fast. Welcome to the session called Middle School Students. And I am going to talk pretty fast, but I have everything on a blog post so that you can access it.
Oh, excellent.
And the blog post you can find it's the most recent blog post on Create, Make, Learn at blogspot.com. What you see there, or if you go to Create, Make, Learn, whoops, there's a typo on that slide. Create, Make, Learn. You can also go to blog and find it there. At the bottom, you will see my contact information and a couple of my makerspaces. One of them is there with my passion project for over 20 years, working with girls in tech, especially makerspaces now. And until pandemic, we had our makerspace in a mobile bus that was traveling around the country where I've met some of you. I've seen some people here that I have met. But over 30 years, I was in a classroom, and now I work with teachers on special projects in schools. Our session description. I hope I will be able today to get through it all, but I'm going to share a maker residency example that works with middle school students who are in that stage of self-identity and developing their self-identity. I'm going to create a physical product that helps them express their evolving sense of self and really works at developing teacher and student relationships and helping students reveal their personal interest and identity, but also reveals the skills and strengths of students whose skills and strengths are not often revealed through traditional classroom activities. All my residencies that I do, I use design thinking to plan them. Here is the design thinking cycle. At the end of the session, if we have time, I will go over how I do the planning. And I also did a blog post because I had a feeling we'd run out of time on how I do the planning part. This one, the question, how my week question that we ended up with was, how might we co-design a 1-week on-site residency for 5th and 6th graders that creates an experience for these middle school students to gain self-awareness about their emerging identity, and that integrates the creative process and uses tools and materials found in a school makerspace with the constraint of we have 3 class periods to do this in. The framework that I like to use is to inspire my learners, whether they're teachers or students, then to do some skill building, create confidence, and then that you will need to make something meaningful with learning goals always at the center. This particular residency was at Hyde Park Elementary School. This maker residency, here you can see some of the students. We've already gone over the how might we question. I could talk about this, but I am going to start playing a 2.5-minute video. If you can hear it, it's just music in the background. I will let it play because I think it captures the essence of the whole residency. If you can't hear it, somebody chime in and I will stop the video if it starts to not work for you, and we'll just talk about it. Were you able to see that? Okay. Okay, great. Well, I hope that gave you, I wish I could take you to that classroom, but I hope that gave you an idea of what was happening during those 3 class sessions. Oops, let's pause that and hit the next slide. I'm going to share with you how we got started. We started with an icebreaker. Identity is a pretty kind of scary subject to enter into cold. So we didn't have a cold opening. We use alter egos, and we tried to have a very diverse representation of alter egos here. And students started to talk about alter egos, what they were, and then they did a hands-on activity as an icebreaker where they used Legos to create an alter ego superhero that had a secret ability or power. And then they had to talk about what they could do with that superpower. We had to modify that prompt a little bit because at first we didn't say what you could do for good, and some of the superpowers were not necessarily things that we wanted our students to be doing with their superpower. Then after that, we went into this name story identity. People were going to talk about their names. Teachers shared stories about their names. This video, I can't recommend it enough. Beautiful video, beautifully done. We used it in literacy class. And I'm not going to play it. It's just there for you to take a look at later. This slide deck is on that blog post I let you know about. So after students are inspired, they've had their icebreaker, they're starting to, we're going to go with creating confidence around skills, doing a skill builder. And we passed around some artifacts that represented certain young people. And we asked them to talk about what they knew about those young people. So they were touching and feeling these artifacts. And they, in small groups, talked about, what do you know about Hannah and about Chris and about Kyle? Then we went into the following learning targets. The first one was, I can create an SVG file using primitive shapes. At this point, we were using Google Tools and a conversion tool called Pick SVG. There are links to the tutorials of how to do this on the slides. The school had a very strict student data privacy requirement, and we were constrained with that a little bit, but we've made it work, as most makers do. We figure it out. And I have the instructions on how to do this with Google Tools in those links. If I would do it today, the tool I'm using is cuddle.xyz, and they do have a signed data privacy agreement with many schools in Vermont. So it is the tool for the job. I would recommend that tool. Then we went into actually cutting the designs right away. Just simple designs so that you got a feel for the learning target. I can cut a design using various maker tools. So they learned the workflow. They uploaded their SVG files to a laser cutter. They had a Glowforge in their Makerspace. And we also had a Cricut cutting machine. So they learned how to upload their SVG files to the Cricut design space. Students Next, we went to the learning target. I can locate and use icons that communicate a message. this learning target, we use the Noun project. I love the Noun project. If you haven't used it, you can download PNGs and SVGs for free. And if you love it as much as I do and subscribe to it, they have an educated price, and you can also do it without attributions. But if you use the free version, use attribution, teach your kids some digital citizenship. This is an amazing tool. And after they downloaded 5 different ones, by the time they had done that, I knew those kids. I was on the second session with them, and I had never met them before, and I felt like we had a great relationship blooming from what I knew about them. Then they created a draft version that included text and graphics for their physical artifact. Then they gave each other feedback on them. And finally, I'm going to go back to the feedback part here because I just want to point something out. You may have noticed that some of them have holes, like the hole in the middle of the A or the O that popped out. I found that it almost didn't, it was a waste of time to try to explain that until it really happened. So I'm going to go back for a second. When they did their draft version on cardstock, they started to have a problem they needed to solve. And then when I explained to them different techniques for making the counters, or what you call the stencilify is what I call it, work, then it made sense because they had a real problem to solve. Finally, when they have their artifact and got some feedback on it and they felt good about it, they got to pick some materials and select materials for their final artifacts. Wood was really popular, more so than acrylic, which surprised me. And finally, now that they've got the skill, we wanted to apply it to something. Because we only had one day, I gave them some choices, but we all made a journal. I talked to their teachers, and we all talked about what they were learning, and they were doing some narratives in class. So we all made personalized journal covers with their artifact. We had to tweak it and build on our skills. We had aspirations that the journal covers were going to have electronics and class and all kinds of things. So we had to scale back a little because of the time constraints. So I did just put in a video here. If you had more time, you could take it to that next level. I'm going to stop. Did we do this?
We did. You talked very fast and got it done. We
Nice
do have a
job.
few minutes for questions, though. Anybody have questions?
Go for it, Bridget.
Hi, sorry, I had to unmute myself. So I'm looking at making in schools. Like I would really love to see this become part of like the core curriculum or practices, part of the core practice of teaching. And I'm thinking about the progression over time, like what the emphasis could be at elementary, what the emphasis could be at middle school. And I love this idea of middle schoolers really developing their identity as makers, because I've seen that like in middle schools when, especially when kids come from different elementary schools and they funnel into this middle school and they don't really know how to operate in an informal environment. And so the tools become like a distraction, and they wind up acting out because they don't know what this vice is, or they don't know, depending on the kind of room they're in. If they're in like some of the maker spaces used to be something else, like the automotive room or the tech lab, and so they're not set up like traditional classrooms. And so I've noticed some kids really have a hard time because they don't know how to act in that space. They don't know what these tools are for. And if there's not enough time for them to explore the tools, then the tools become the focus, and so this is great because you're giving them time to kind of get to know the tools and build relationships with the tools and develop their sense of self in that space. And so I just wanted to comment on that and give you that feedback. But I'm thinking like, what elementary kids focusing on different kinds of materials, and then middle schoolers developing that sense of autonomy and self-determination in the maker space, and then high schoolers maybe taking those bigger concepts of entrepreneurship and innovation and creativity. Not that you don't have all of that all along, but like that then they have the foundation where they can go further with that. I mean, what are your thoughts?
That is a big question and a big statement, Bridget. I have a lot of thoughts on that. A lot of them are when I have thoughts about something, I get up in the middle of the night and I can't sleep. So I usually blog. And the thoughts that I have around that are on the blog. And I also welcome you to reach out and we can have a conversation about it just through email or also to give you some others. This particular one, the planning, I think because it was curricular focused, let me see if I have this, no, I don't have that slide. I did the part about empathy and was that empathy with the students, what was the teachers? What are you going through? What are you teaching? What are your constraints? And I write about that. And they were doing a unit from Fontes and Pinnell. Your literacy teachers might know that. And it fit perfectly. So that was designed to make it align with the students. And the teachers were part of the Makerspace. They were all part of the residency at some point. Some of them were there the whole time, but some of them just came in for one session. But we were co-facilitators of the kids in the room. So I think my thought is having it be intentional, have purpose, have time to explore, like that Lego activity, have time to be whimsical and build skills. I learned that at MIT Makerspace. If you skip the building skills, then you don't have something meaningful at the end. But if you do some skill builders, don't make it step by step by step, every step of the way, because that's boring for kids and it doesn't hit those targets. So short skill builders that get them started, that create confidence is what I call them. And then they're ready to do some real meaningful thing and have them look. And so a culture is important. This school had an amazing culture of respect and creativity. And they ended every day with a circle of appreciations, roses and thorns and all kinds of protocols. And I think that helps to have some protocols for reflection like that. And they were sacred. If we went long, or if I was picking up and that circle started, everybody looked at me like, uh-oh, what is she doing? She's breaking the protocol. So I just sat down and it was the culture was really important.
That's so great. That's so exciting. It really is.
I did not used to like the residency models because I think we tried to skew too much and hit the whole school. And now I've come up with some models that work for residencies where we can really have time to be more intentional. And I think that's important. And this residency really transformed my thinking about residencies. And now all the residencies that I do, I use design thinking and we are much more intentional about where we're going and how to get there. And I hope that I bring in my experience to help the teachers have an experience. And in this one, the teachers were like, don't take this stuff away. Are we going to have access after Lucie leaves? And I think that was a key to success. Indicator of success when they were developing and planning after school stuff and curriculum stuff after we left, because the Makerspace, they had the tools, they just weren't being used because of some changes in staffing and curriculum. And I think we lit a fire and got it going again through the 3-day residency.